If you have a strange or scary story you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. Hey Raven, I just recently came across your channel and I wanted to say how much I love it, especially the Glitch in the Matrix stories. I've always had an interest in the paranormal, and I look forward to sharing my weird experiences with you in the community. There's so much that's happened in my life that it sometimes feels like I'm caught between different layers of reality. I know that sounds strange, but once you hear my story, I think you'll get a better idea of what I mean. As a bit of backstory, I frequently have precognitive dreams that come true, sometimes within days, weeks, or even years. It's like catching a glimpse of the future in my sleep. I can't explain how or why it happens, but it's been a constant theme throughout my life. It's one of the many reasons why I've come to believe that I have some level of psychic ability. But this particular story isn't about my dreams. I'll save those for another time. This is about something that happened while I was wide awake. A truly terrifying and surreal experience that makes me question what exactly I encountered. Right now I'm living with my best friend and their family, and ever since I moved in, strange things have been happening around me. There have been odd occurrences that I can't explain, but none of them compare to what happened on this one particular night. That night, I was sitting in my bedroom watching YouTube, just trying to wind down before bed. It was a pretty normal evening until I was suddenly hit with a very strong and distinct smell. At first, I couldn't quite place it, but after a few moments I realized that it smelled like dried leaves that had been burned and then extinguished with rain. The scent was so vivid and overpowering that it was as if I were standing in the middle of a forest previously on fire after a storm. But here's the thing. I was in my bedroom. Nothing out of the ordinary. I tried to shake it off, but the sensation only got stronger. I felt like I was both in my room and in a forest at the same time. Almost like I was straddling two realities. I can't fully describe how disorienting it was. I could see the walls of my room, the soft glow of my phone screen, and yet overlaying that, I was seeing dense, dark trees swaying in the middle of a storm. I could hear the rain pelting against leaves, and feel the dampness in the air, even though I was physically still in my bedroom. The weirdest part? It wasn't that I was just seeing the forest. I felt like I was experiencing it through someone else's eyes. It was almost as if I had been transported into another person's consciousness. This person was terrified, hiding in a makeshift shelter deep in the woods. I could feel their fear as intensely as if it were my own, and it was overwhelming. I could tell that they had been there for a while, maybe a couple of weeks, just trying to survive. I have no idea who this person was, but they were running from something or someone, and the feeling of dread was suffocating. What made this even stranger is that I'm originally from the Midwest, and I recently moved to Texas. I'm nowhere near any forests like the one I was seeing, and it rarely rains in my area. So, it wasn't like I was just picking up some nearby sensory cues. The vision, or whatever it was, had no connection to my current surroundings. At that point, I started to panic. The experience felt so real, and yet I was still aware that I was in my room. I didn't know what to do. I got up and went to my friend's room and woke them up, desperate for help, but they didn't know what to say. I could barely explain what was happening because I didn't understand it myself. I was having a full-blown panic attack, caught between two realities and unable to pull myself out. Now, for a bit more context, I have dabbled in things like remote viewing, astral projection, and channeling, so I'm not entirely unfamiliar with the idea of stepping outside of my own consciousness. I've always believed in psychic abilities because, like I mentioned earlier, I've had precognitive dreams and gut feelings that ended up being accurate more times than I can count. But this experience was unlike anything I have ever encountered before. I don't know if I was somehow tapping into another dimension, another person's experiences, or something entirely different. I couldn't shake the feeling that this person, whoever they were, was in serious danger, and that I was supposed to help them. But how could I? I didn't know where they were, who they were, or how to reach them. The whole thing left me feeling completely helpless. Was I glimpsing into a parallel reality? Was I channeling someone's experiences in a different part of the world? Or was this some kind of message meant for me to receive? I have no answers, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to. The whole experience left me rattled, and I'm just hoping that I never go through something like that again. Once was more than enough for me. In the days following, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. I kept asking myself, what if that was me in another universe or timeline? What if I was supposed to do something? But the truth is, I don't know. And I may never know. I've always appreciated my psychic abilities, but this experience was way beyond what I'm comfortable with. I don't know what I tapped into that night, and I'm not eager to revisit it anytime soon. So, Raven, that's my story. I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you or anyone else has experienced something similar. Maybe there's someone out there who can help me make sense of it, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened. Thanks for listening, and I hope to never have a night like that again. Hi, Raven. I want to start off by saying that your podcast is my absolute favorite. I share it with all my friends and family, and now they're hooked too. Rightfully so. Thank you. Now, my story. I should have died back in 2021. This all started when my best friend and I were taking a trip to Florida. We're both from a college town in the Midwest. I'm used to driving on backcountry roads, never going more than 50 miles per hour because I'm a nervous driver. However, being the only one with the license, I became the driver once we landed from the airport. I was not thrilled about this, but my friend was notorious for not being the best driver, hence the reason I was the only one with the valid license. For those of you who have visited Florida, you know the driving there is no country road. The third day into our trip, we decided to go to the beach, so I drive us there. By this point, I'm getting a little more used to the roads, as well as the enhanced speed limits. I'm feeling more confident, so I'm feeling a bit more at ease, and just moving with the traffic. I'm going 70 miles per hour at least, as I'm in the middle of a 6-lane highway. My best friend and I are just singing along and having a great time. Excited that it's our first trip together. The singing quickly stopped and turned into both of us screaming for our lives. There was a car coming right toward us at an excessive speed. It was going to smash right into us. All I could think was I needed to move, I needed to switch lanes, and we had to get away from this car, or we were going to die. As I looked around, we're boxed in. Cars around us in each lane. There was nowhere for me to go without hitting someone going at least 70. A crash like that with any car could be fatal. This is where things start to get very strange for me. I was terrified when this was happening. Screaming. I don't scream. All of a sudden, the fear left my body and I turned on my turn signal. From that point until we were stopped at the next stoplight, everything went black for me. There was nowhere for us to have gone. No lane for me to switch to. We should have been killed. And maybe we were. The next thing I remember is being stopped at the light as the cars around me are full of people clapping and giving me a thumbs up. It was such a relief, but we were still so shaken the rest of the day. Now, I know this sounds like a bad driver story, but what still freaks me out to this day is the fact that I don't remember driving. I don't remember what I did to get us out of that situation. It was like as soon as I turned on my turn signal, I left my body and it was no longer me driving. I remember my best friend saying, "I don't know how you just did that. That was some Matrix crap." This was way before I really knew much about glitches in the Matrix, and I couldn't explain it. I don't know how 1 second we should have been smashed by a reckless driver, and the next we were sitting at a stoplight. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone or something was looking out for us. Or maybe we did die that day, and we switched timelines. Hey Raven, this happened a few years ago, but it shaped the course of my life. I've always been a spiritual guy. I believe in God, not that I follow anything too closely or ritually, but the odds of this happening randomly are surely too wild to comprehend, so I believe it's a glitch, or at least an event engineered by a greater power. I'd been wanting a copy of Cormac McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses for a while. A bookstore in the city had it in. I took the train in and picked it up. I got back to my apartment complex and went in the back entrance, which I don't normally use. At the back entrance are the mailboxes, all stacked like beehives. I only rent a bedroom there. I'm not legally registered, so it's rare that I get mail. But as I passed the mailboxes, I thought I would do my housemate a solid and collect her mail. Again, it's rare that I carry the mailbox key, but I had my backpack on and thought I would check the compartment in the off chance that I'd chucked the key in at some point. I had. The key was there, front zipper. I knelt and wrestled the mailbox lock, opened up to a sea of detritus. Apparently nobody had checked our mail in time. Maybe 30 letters lay there, some damp and some muddy. I made myself comfortable and took them out a pile at a time, leafing through for any clean ones addressed to my housemate that I could take in for her. About a dozen in, I came across a small, pristine envelope, wider than the rest, and on the front, my name had been written by hand. I was intrigued. It's always interesting getting mail addressed to you in pen, but also because, like I said earlier, I'm not registered to this address, and I live in a different country. None of my circle around here would write letters. I assumed that maybe it was a birthday card that had sat there for months. Anyway, I nonchalantly slid the envelope inside the novel I had just bought, All the Pretty Horses, and then I shut up the mailbox and headed in, deciding that it was nothing worth fetching in the house for my housemate. Just a bunch of junk. I got in my home and took the envelope from inside the novel, chucked the novel on the kitchen counter, and tore open the envelope. My excitement faded when I saw that, even though it was a letter written in beautiful cursive font, it was clearly a religious letter. Not a personal one for me. I read the first line and then my eyes were drawn to the middle, to the only line written in marker, or stronger pen at least. It stood out, dead center, as if everything else was written around it only to emphasize its importance. It was a Bible verse. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I don't know the wider context because I didn't read the rest of the letter, but anyways, my attention turned to All the Pretty Horses, the novel I had just bought. I picked it up from the counter and read the blurb, smelled the pages, and then, as I often do with new books, turned to a random page to read a sentence. I was stupefied. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was reading the same Bible verse. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The first random page I had turned to, the first sentence I randomly looked at, contained the same Bible verse that I had just read on the letter I had carried into my home inside the novel. Any Cormac McCarthy fans out there, will know that All the Pretty Horses is not a religious book. It's about two guys cutting through Mexico on horseback looking for work. What are the odds on that being a random event? Sure, the Bible verse is one of the more famous, but even if the novel was a Christian book, what are the chances of me opening to a random page and seeing first the very same Bible verse that I had just read highlighted on a different, unrelated letter? A letter I happened to acquire on the same day, in the same hour as the book. And then there's the synergy of me carrying the letter inside the book, as if somehow the verse had transferred from one medium to the other. I just want to know what it means. Hi, Raven. My Glitch in the Matrix story requires a little bit of context before I get into it. I had my eldest daughter young. I was pregnant for most of being 18 and turned 19 the month after she was born. The only work I had done up to that point was a server in a hotel for a short time, a retail assistant in a card shop over the Christmas holidays, and a little bit of work experience in a reptile shop as I was studying a course for animal management. Fast forward a few years, my daughter is now 5 or 6. I haven't worked anywhere else during this time, having the opportunity to stay home and raise her. I decided to take her swimming one afternoon. The swimming pool is laid out like a big loop, so you can just go around and around. I notice as we're going around the loop that there is a woman who is maybe in her mid-30s, early 40s, with dark curly hair that keeps looking back at us. I know that she's also there with more than one child, so I keep telling myself that she's trying to keep an eye on the older ones who are swimming around the loop faster than us moms with the little ones. It becomes apparent that she is definitely just staring, though, after a few loops around. I just keep trying to ignore her and act like I don't notice her staring, but I'm very aware of this woman watching us. Eventually, on one of the loops around, we end up coming close to each other, and she calls out my name. I'm already very guarded at this point, and it catches me completely by surprise, and I ask if we know each other. This woman seems a bit taken aback that I don't recognize her, but proceeds to tell me her name. I apologize to her and tell her that I'm very sorry, but I don't know who she is. We're both obviously very confused at this point, as she clearly knows who I am. She even inquires after some of my family members by name. I've lowered my guard a little at this point, as there doesn't seem to be anything sinister about her, but my curiosity is definitely piqued. I switch tactics and ask her, where do we know each other from? What she said next left me completely confused. She proceeds to name the place where we worked together 3 years ago. I tell this woman that this isn't possible. I've never heard of the workplace before, and I haven't worked since I had my daughter. The conversation pretty much ended there. She looked absolutely horrified, and I'm sure that I did too. To this day, I still can't understand this interaction. That woman definitely knew who I was and was sure that we used to work together. I can't place her, and I still don't know the workplace that she mentioned. I wonder about this a lot. Did I jump timelines to one where I went back to work after having my daughter? Or did she jump timelines? I think that this will spook me forever. I'm an arborist, and I cut and load tree limbs into my trailer daily. When I arrive, I park my truck and set my keys on the passenger seat. I do this so routinely that it's a muscle memory movement, and on the day of which I perceived a glitch in my reality, I was doing a typical job. I loaded my trailer and was set to leave. I reached for my keys, and they weren't there. The homeowner saw that I was confused and we began looking through my truck. We couldn't find the keys. We took everything out of the truck and still no keys. We looked in the cracks of every seat. We looked under every floor mat. He called his son out, and we tore through my truck, all the while I kept insisting that I always leave them on the passenger seat. I eventually unloaded the tree brush off my trailer 3 times and sifted through the brush with the father and son. Soon after that, I called my wife because she is the best I've met at finding lost items, and she couldn't find the keys either. It got dark and I gave up and paid a locksmith $250 for a new key. This vehicle is my only truck, and I work out of it every day. It's also my personal vehicle. I'm stating that just to say that I spend more time in it than my house. I continued working every weekday in my truck like normal, and then 3 weeks later, as I'm driving down the highway to a job, I see in my peripheral my original keys. Same broken key fob and everything, just sitting dead center in my passenger seat. The only thing on the seat were the keys. Dead center. I called my wife and the client and told them both, and they couldn't believe it. As much as it was weird to them, it was 5 times more weird to me. I immediately felt like I was in the Matrix. Just a week or so later, I stumbled upon your podcast and felt inspired to tell this story. Hey Raven, here's a glitch in the Matrix story that just happened yesterday, and I think you should hear about it. It was an average Saturday when I dropped my daughter off at the park to meet her friends. I settled on a bench with my coffee. I couldn't help but take in the scenery around me. The park was buzzing with energy, typical of a sunny weekend. Kids were playing, parents were chatting, and the distant sound of laughter echoed through the air. I noticed Amber walking over towards me. She's one of my daughter's best friends. She was wearing one of those crop tops that shows off her belly button, and those ugly Crocs that seem to be in fashion for some reason that I'll never understand. They're everywhere these days. Amber's boyfriend, with his trademark mullet, had just dropped her off. I watched as Amber plopped down beside me, full of energy, ready to share whatever new lingo she had recently learned. I was telling her last week that I couldn't understand the 14-year-old these days. At 42, I felt old. She then told me that she would explain what these words meant next time she saw me. So here she was, keeping her word. She was going on and on as I chuckled, trying to keep up. Okay, hit me with it, I said, knowing that it would probably go over my head, waiting for the next strange word. Amber launched into a quick explanation of something called no cap. I nodded, pretending to understand, but my mind was swirling. She was always so enthusiastic about these new phrases, and I admired her ability to keep up with the ever-changing language of the teens. But then, just as we were laughing, Amber's demeanor shifted. Her face went blank, and she suddenly started repeating, "No cap, no cap, no cap." It was as if she were glitching out, like a computer struggling to function. I thought at first this was just a new TikTok trend and my daughter might be filming it from behind to capture my reaction. Her head twitched to the right, and then snapped back to me. Slay, 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 ghosted. You're gonna get ghosted, ghosted. The repetitive phrases echoed in my mind and my heart raced. I glanced around, half expecting to see a camera nearby, but there was no one. Just families enjoying the day. Then she turned her head to the left and started saying Riz. The confusion settled in and I could feel my stomach twist. Was she having a seizure? A stroke? My mind raced with panic. I had to do something. Amber, are you okay? I finally managed to ask with my voice shaking. There was no response. Just more of the same strange mantra. I felt helpless. Frozen on the bench. Should I call an ambulance? My thoughts spiraled in a dark corner of anxiety as I debated the urgency of the situation. But then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Amber blinked rapidly, her eyes flickering like a malfunctioning light. She looked at me for a moment and the eerie atmosphere dissipated. "What's up?" she said, laughing. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I was bewildered. "You were just saying some really weird things," I stammered, still trying to wrap my head around what just happened. She brushed her hair behind her ear, looking genuinely confused. "Really? What do you mean? I was just talking about those latest words. You'll get these eventually," she said, shrugging it off as if nothing unusual had occurred at all. I blinked at her, my heart still racing. "You were repeating things like some kind of computer glitch. I thought you were in trouble." Amber laughed again, that carefree sound that reminded me she was still just a kid. "You're silly, I'm totally fine." She looked at me with those bright, innocent eyes, and suddenly I felt foolish for thinking anything was wrong. As I sat there, I wondered if I had imagined the whole thing. Could I have been so wrapped up in my thoughts that I misinterpreted her playful nature? The surreal moment hung in the air, and I tried to convince myself that maybe this was just a weird phase she was going through, some kind of trend I didn't understand. Or maybe this was a menopause symptom I was having. The atmosphere around us shifted back to normal, the chatter and laughter of the park enveloping us. It felt like a small piece of reality had shifted, like we had crossed into another realm, but no one else seemed to notice. I chuckled nervously, still feeling the remnants of anxiety coursing through me. As we continued our conversation, it felt as though the strange episode had evaporated into the background, like a fleeting dream. Yet, in the corners of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened, something I couldn't explain. Maybe I had witnessed a glitch in the Matrix that only I could see. Or perhaps it was just a peculiar moment in the life of a teenager. Either way, it left me pondering the nature of reality and how easily it can bend in unexpected ways. Hi, Raven. So, to begin, since I was very little, I would have dreams in places I had never gone to. The funny thing would be, when time went by, on a random day, I would actually be at that location that I dreamt about. I understand if some don't believe me, and you might think I had previously gone there, but I remember very vividly once dreaming of a place that looked kind of old, and had a statue of Abraham Lincoln, which I had never seen before. Where I'm from, there's no white statue of any president. After a hurricane hit the island that I live at, I had to make an emergency trip in order to get a power generator. On that trip is when I stepped into the place that I had dreamt about. So, fast forward, it was maybe a month or two into my relationship, and I told my boyfriend how I had dreamt about a drawing a classmate was doing, and actually guessed right what he was going to draw next. How, in my aunt's wedding, I had a glimpse of a dream I had where my granduncle, my grandmother's uncle, was looking to the side while a beautiful sunset was behind him, and he was wearing a hat, which is unusual for him. He was very skeptical. I understood, as I would be the same way if I were someone else. So, one day, I asked him for help with our move. The thing I needed help with was to undo the whole bed frame in order to take it in pieces. As I'm unscrewing it, I tell him, "You know, a few days ago I had a dream where I was in the same room, except in the wall that I'm standing at, there was a male energy sitting around where you are right now. Then, a wood board fell on my foot, but maybe I'm crazy." As soon as I finished saying crazy, the board that was connected to the one I was holding fell right on my foot. My boyfriend was in such shock that he was just sitting there paralyzed, looking at me with wide eyes. I just acted as if it was nothing because, again, this had happened to me before. So I grabbed some ice, put it on my foot, and kept working. He was silent for a good 10 minutes until he spoke and said, "I'm sorry for not helping you to bring the ice and all. I just can't believe that happened." Now, Every time someone doubts my clairvoyance, he tells them this story. I'll also be submitting some paranormal stories that I have, the good, the scary, and the bad, but until then, thank you, Raven, for entertaining me as I work. This person submitted 2 glitch stories that were on the shorter side, so I'm going to combine them into one story. Hi, Raven. This is my biggest glitch. It began innocuously enough. One day, I decided I would make a list of all the cats I've had since childhood. When I got to my cats Kip and Pandora, I came to a realization that I still can't wrap my brain around. I hope I can explain it well. I have 2 different memories of each cat when I lived in the same place. I should have had them both at the same time, but I didn't. In one reality, I had my white seal point male Kip. In the other reality, I had my black female Pandora. My friend remembers both cats, but has a different memory of how I got Pandora. And when I think too hard about my life situation in those years, it begins to fall apart and make no cohesive or linear sense. Like the movie Dark City, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. I have a lot of other glitches, but this is the most perplexing. And then their second story. For a long while, I made a living doing balloon sculptures at a Chevy's restaurant. I always wore a tip badge, as that's how I made my money, and I was darn good at it if I do say so myself. One night, while getting ready to go, I reached for my tip badge. I always had it on my VCR, and lo and behold, it was gone. I searched everywhere for it. I even felt on top of my VCR in case it was there, and I couldn't see it. Frustrated, I made a lame one on the fly and ran out the door. Cut to getting home and flopping on my couch, and the badge is there, on the VCR, just sitting there. I lived alone and there's no rational reason for this. It disappeared and then poof, there it was again. Not thrilling and maybe mundane, but it got me to notice that something crazy happens. And it happens a lot. Alright, my friends, so that was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, here on the As the Raven Dreams channel. Podcast? Thing. Content creation location. Sure, let's go with that. Collection of strange, weird, and scary stories that are bizarre, odd, and awkward. Awkward indeed. I have found in the 4-ish years that I've done these stories, the most common things for the Matrix to take are keys and earphones. A few other things as well, but those seem to be the most common. And then also cats. Cats are always involved in weird stuff. And then, for some reason, a lot of Matrix stories happen while driving. That's also bizarre. Maybe it's just the most common things we look for and the most common things we do are where we experience the glitches because, well, that's the most common situations we're in, right? I think I ought to believe that. With that, what I'm saying is, they happen all the time, but these are when we notice them because, well, it's a personal commonality in our day. Commonality? Common thing? Whatever. I'm done talking. I talk for a living. I'm never done talking. Hopefully you enjoyed these stories. These Glitch in the Matrix stories. I did. They were fun stories to read. Some bizarre ones in there for sure. And hopefully you agree. If you do, please do hit that like button. That'd be awesome of you. Just to like the video, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing. Consider joining Patreon or memberships to get early access to content like this. Consider buying a poster at the Ko-fi link, that's K-O-F-I, down below in the description. All posters are signed and numbered. You can also super thanks just to support the channel, super chat whenever I do my live streams, which I've been doing on Saturdays. I'm going to do one on Friday and see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, I'm going to go back to Saturdays. Can also listen to other platforms, Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcast, etc., Pandora. Yeah. The other thing we do on this channel is what I call the Word of the Week. On the Word of the Week, I take a word and put it at the end of a glitch video. You then take that word, write a sentence with it for the next week's video, preferably before Sunday morning. These typically go up on Monday, but Sunday morning I try to get them together. And I use your word in a screenshot, your sentence. And then we do it all over again the next week. On the screen right now and several minutes prior to now is a collection of all the screenshots I took of people who left me the word of the week in their sentence. All these people went above and beyond, left a comment with the word, and I thank them for that. I thank them for it. I combined that and it and made it thit. Why is my brain so not good? Not good brain do. Anyways, again, thank you to everyone who left their sentences last week on the word of the week on the video. Y'all are amazing. This week, the word of the week is macabre. M-A-C-A-B-R-E. If you know me and have known me long enough, you'll know that I once, on a live stream a long time ago, was reading and pronounced it macabre. And I got made fun of for it. So here we are. Macabre. You know what's funny? If you go to Merriam-Webster, the pronunciations, there's macabre and macabre. So technically Merriam-Webster says macabre is not wrong. Anyways, it means having death as a subject comprising or including a personalized representation of death, dwelling on the gruesome, tending to produce horror in a beholder. Macabre is a very horror-based word. Use it however you feel. If you want to be like, oh no, the bear took my corn, he took macabre, you can, I'll accept that. Anyways, hope you all have a beautiful day. Hope I see you again here very soon. Until then, remember you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.